Live from Kakariko Village. Broadcast throughout the Retroverse, transmitted to the real world via a maze of wires connecting a Super Nintendo to a Wii, to a Wi-Fi network, and finally to the internet. The Techno Funk Boy presents the Retro Zoo Super Show. Now here are your hosts, Kai and Steven.
Well, greetings, everybody. This is the Retro Zoo Super Show, and this is 2020. Yay! So this is like that kind of time of the year where everybody sits back and reflects on where they've been and where they are going. But this is also a podcast, so I know that actually most of you don't listen when the episode comes out, but usually a little bit later, sometimes a lot later, and so this is our first episode of the year 2020. But I mean, actually, not a ton is going to change with us because this is a retro gaming podcast, and looking ahead is not really what we specialize in. The kind of looking back is really kind of our wheelhouse, and so we're going to continue to doing more of that. This is going to be a little bit of a different episode for those of you who are enjoying our Final Fantasy IV series. We will be returning to that. I think with just one more episode next week, but it's going to be a very, very fun one, and so looking forward to doing that. But kind of a scattering of topics today, mostly based on what I have been playing and kind of a way of looking ahead, a little bit about what we hope to accomplish as a podcast in the coming year, and also what I hope to accomplish as a gamer in the coming year. And so I kind of say that looking ahead, like most of I mentioned this in the last episode. It's like this is where even the retro gaming podcasts start talking about stuff that's coming out this year and stuff like that. Not here, not me. You can rely on me to not be up to date at all, and so we're definitely not going to do that. None of my gaming goals have anything to do with what's coming out in the future or even very recently. But I guess lately I've played a couple of things. I started and I started this particular game because we're planning on doing an episode on it in the near future. But I started playing Galactic Battlegrounds. So if you haven't played this is like an Age of Empires type real time strategy game that is set in the Star Wars universe. And that very much excited me, with episode 9 coming out in The Mandalorian on Disney Plus. I've been very much in a Star Wars mood, and so this was like perfectly what I was looking for. A little bit of history with me with real-time strategy games, or RTSs. I am bad at them. I have not played many. I love them. I absolutely love them. I dumped out when Warcraft and Warcraft 2 came out. I just absolutely dumped hours into them, and I was still very, very bad at both of them. I didn't play a lot of other real-time strategy games. I put a little bit of time in PC Medieval Total War, but not even really a lot. That was one of those that was one of those games that, you know, like I found long after it came out in the little bargain shelf at Walmart or something, that I just got and played a little bit, you know, enough to kind of get my feet wet in it and make me feel like that I, you know, got my, you know, $3 worth of entertainment out of it. I got honestly probably way too many of those, or at very least I didn't put enough time into them to make them really, really worthwhile. The kind of the exception to that was one that I absolutely loved, and I found out much later that without patching it is actually impossible to finish, and that is Sierra Online's game Outpost. And so I you know, it's like I just had a blast with that game and just spent a lot of time into it. I never beat it, and I don't even know that I had the patch to beat it. So the story behind that was, you know, they were starting to rush games a little bit over at Sierra, just a little bit, in order to, you know, get things out and you know, in people's hands, so that so some money could start rolling in. And they were selling a crap ton of games, but that's one of those, you know, kind of pressures of being successful, is that you always kind of want to be more successful. And if you have a year that's less successful, questions start getting asked, and so they rushed several games. And I remember this time because I was a big Sierra fan, and just the patches that you would have to download after buying a game, especially a game that's been out for a while, were just astronomical. It was insane that, you know, these games came out and they were not finished at all, had major bugs, and in this case, in the case of Outpost, they hadn't finished it. They just outright had not finished the game, and there was no way to win at all. And so later they patched that, but that game is actually, I had a ton of fun with that game, but yeah, that was one of the examples used of the real decline of Sierra time period. But getting off of that a little bit, I back to RTSs. So like Warcraft and Warcraft 2, I spent a lot of time in, and I just had a lot of fun with them, but I was never very good at them. And so we have not, despite Steven's obsession with StarCraft, we have not really spent a lot of time on RTSs, and that's something that I do want to fix, because there is something that I really enjoy, and it really reminds me of spending some long hours, you know, studying the battle map and deploying forces in Warcraft, and just having a ton of fun doing that. And so I got this, and I got it off Steam. It was on both Steam and GOG for it was less than $5 on sale or something. It was like $3, something like that. It was on sale, and so I snagged it, and I started playing the tutorial, and I died. I died in the tutorial, and just as a little bit of a defense for myself, like, I misread the goals. And so this is one where, you know, it's trying to train you on how to make soldiers and upgrade soldiers, and so it wants you to get Chewie and, you know, make some other Wookiee soldiers and upgrade them and then send them out. But the thing about that is, at the very beginning of it, it's like they say, hey, you know, Chewie's dad Atachikuk. I think that's his name. Oh my goodness, all my Star Wars fans are going to get on me about that. Is out scouting, and so he's going to come back later. And so you reach a certain point in your development, and and you see him off in the corner. You can't control him. He's computer controlled. And he starts walking. It's like, oh, okay, he's coming back. So this is going to kind of introduce the next segment of the game. And he just walks into like this ambush of droids, and they just shoot the snot out of him. And you know, it's that moment where it's like, that was like this unexpected thing in the game, and you're like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And then Qui-Gon, who's narrating all of this, says, don't worry, you know, I can sense that he's still alive, and so, you know, make some more soldiers, make a medic, and we'll go out there and save him eventually. And it's the most casual thing ever. It's like, yeah, don't worry about it right now. He'll do fine, just laying there face down in the muck by himself. Well, you know, you get all these people, and you go out and you fights with some droids, and then you get to them, and you take your medic out there, and your medic is like healing everybody, and you know, so it's like, okay, so the medic heals him, and he gets up, and he joins your party, and it's like fantastic. And then it says, all right, now go back to camp, but you know, watch out for droids on the way. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this thing's over. I met the criteria. I know. I heard him say that there were droids on the way. But, you know, these guys are mostly pushovers. And so I did exactly what Chewie's father did. Like, I just walked right into the ambush, which wouldn't even have been a big deal. But I had put Chewie's father in the front of the party, you know, because he and Chewie just were strolling back, like, you know, like champions, and they immediately took him down. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, healer, you know, medic guy, let's go heal him. And Obi-Wan comes on, he's like, you know, you have failed your objectives. I was like, oh, I see now. Yeah, I was supposed to keep him alive. Yeah, that didn't work, and it was just, it was one of those moments. It's just like the dumbest thing that I possibly could have done is what I just did, and like it just did not read the objectives at all. So I have the distinction of dying, in the tutorial in this game, and so like Steven wants to play against me in this, and like I'm game for that, but it's like Steven like plays like StarCraft regularly, and I die in the tutorial of games, and so I'm like, you know, I was like, I'll do it. This is like going to be I need to stream this because it's going to be a massacre of such astronomical proportions that that it should be most entertaining for everyone. But yeah, so that's been one of the games I took advantage of some mobile sales from Square Enix, and I picked up Dragon Warriors 1, 2, and 3 on mobile. Now, if you remember back in the Dragon Warrior series, I mentioned that I had Dragon Warrior 1 on mobile. Actually, I had Dragon Warrior 1 and 2. Well, I switched phones, and I went from Android to iPhone, so of course I got to, get everything again, and I had not finished 2, and so I was sitting there, and it's like, well, let me grab 2 again and grab 3, and if you remember, it's like I was like really, really fond of the mobile port of Dragon Warrior 1. I thought it was really good, and it actually put it into the portrait orientation. What is it? I don't know what it's called. Portrait orientation, and that way you can play one-handed, and everything feels really good and feels really natural. And the most importantly, like the gold and the level grinding is very, very nice and balanced. They of course lessened both of those, but that's kind of easy to get out of control. And And so this was a case where it's like, no, it's actually really, really nicely balanced. So as I was getting 2 and 3, 1 is just, it's so cheap. It is so cheap on mobile. I was like, well, this would be fun to play again. That's not that's pretty cool. And so I started playing it again. The main difference I'm finding between iOS and Android is that Android will let the phone play something while you're playing the game. It's all, I listen to podcasts when I'm playing the stupid game, and iOS will not let you do that. And so it's like I'm trying to listen to a podcast and just kind of let the do some little level grinding or some gold grinding while I'm doing that, and the game's like, nope, you're gonna listen to the soundtrack and the sound effects or nothing. And from what I understand from a friend of mine, I think the later Dragon Warrior games fixes that so you can listen to something in the back, instead of the game while you're playing the game, or I guess in addition to the game. But 1, definitely not. And which is kind of crummy because it's like, I really want to listen to this Call of Cthulhu actual play podcast that I'm listening to, and now I have to choose what to do on my lunch break, and that's not really what I'm wanting out of a mobile game. So it's kind of weird, but the Android port ended up being a lot better just because I could just chill playing it while listening to some cool stuff on the podcast and really, really enjoy that. And so that is what I'm doing with that. I'm almost I'm pretty far into Dragon Warrior. For those of you who know the game, I've gotten Erdrick's armor already. I'm going after the sword at this point. I've gotten got the Stones of Sunlight, the Staff of Rain. I've made the Rainbow Bridge. I'm in Charlotte Castle. I'm just going to go after the sword real quick, then come back out and grind a little bit. I actually still don't have a shield, which is probably dumb going to Charlotte Castle. My strategy this time was to see if I could skip some armor and weapon steps along the way to try to speed things up. And I've done that to an extent, but I think I tried it too much this time, where just skip like 3, maybe even 4 steps along the way, instead of maybe just skipping 1, and so I think it actually slowed me down a little bit, not taking more baby steps along the way. But the end result of that is I never did buy a shield. Never did. I'm to the point in the game where I can fairly easily gold grind for the silver shield, and so there's no sense in me getting anything else, unless Charlotte Castle just destroys me. But I'm thinking I can at least get down, get the sword out, and that way it'll make the gold grind and the final level grind a lot easier. So I probably don't have a ton of time left in this game, in an hour or so. Like I said, the speed on the grinding is actually a whole lot better. And so that is what I've been doing gaming-wise, and it's been kind of fun over kind of the Christmas and New Year time period. I was going to say break, but I still had to work. But it was fun to be able to play a little bit. Music-wise, we just hit our first season finale of Dice and Dreary, and so we did a lot of music for that episode. And so if you're not listening to that, please do. We do this complete soundtrack of that. We actually have the first volume out, and we will out available, on Spotify, on iTunes, on whatever it is you use. We do have that available, and so please do check that out. But check out the podcast, because those songs are more fun in context. But we did a season ending song that is kind of a synth pop love song that was a lot of fun to do. And we also started working on another podcast that we were graciously invited to work on the soundtrack for, and that is In Defense of Liberty. And this was a fun experience, because it's letting us break out of what we normally do a little bit and experiment with some different styles and such. And besides which, it's just a great podcast. And so this is kind of in the true crime legal vein, and that is something that I have listened to a lot of true crime and legal podcasts, and so it's one of the things that I really do like as far as podcast genres go, and this one is a really, really great podcast, and so I do encourage you to check that one out as well if you want to hear us maybe doing a little bit of a different vibe musically, and so it's been an absolute blast, and so please do check that out. And so the other thing that I've been playing is one of the friends of the show has let me borrow Bravely Default, and that is not a retro game, and and we're actually going to talk about it a little bit. So I guess in a way this is like a new year, but we're still looking backwards, but not nearly as far backwards as we normally do. So it's kind of like looking forward, just less backwards than normal. But there's a lot of things that I wanted to kind of say about this game, even on a retro podcast, and I think that in general, listeners to this podcast, this is something that might be realistically right up your alley, and so we'll chat about that a little bit.
Guy, there's someone at the door.
There's someone on the phone?
No, there's someone at the door.
At the door? Wait, hold on. Okay, well, can you let him know that that we're recording?
He is insistent that he come in.
Okay, well, tell him no.
He says he's from corporate.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, come on in. Come on. Hey, yeah, welcome. So, we're right in the middle of the show right now. Well, yeah, I know, but, yeah, I did want to mention a couple of things for you, as we are, transitioning over. Okay. Well, go ahead and sit down. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, so I was listening on the way over and I didn't hear you do the intro. Oh gosh, yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. That's just a habit thing. I apologize, folks. So I kind of get y'all up to date. It is as part of the new year. One of the changes that's happening around here is that the local station here in Kakariko Village was bought by a media group. And so we have joined their family, and so that's very exciting, to do, and so we have new intros and such to do, but I we've been doing this for 2 years, and so it's out of habit, I just forgot. I even have it taped here on my screen, and I just forgot, yeah, so I apologize for that. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and do the intro. We're halfway through the show. Yeah, I know. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, so welcome to the Retro Zoo Super Show on WTRI in Kakariko Village, your source for talk, news, and sports in Hyrule. That's very good, thank you. Okay, yeah, so now did you do the weather? What? Okay, that doesn't actually make any sense. I know we're broadcasting here in Kakariko Village, but this is actually an international show. We actually interdimensional show. We pierce the veil of into the real world even. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Like most of our listeners are not in Kakariko. Well, how are our listeners going to know the weather then? Don't you people have phones? I mean, come on. I'm sorry, you're gonna need to do the weather. Okay. All right. Well, it's it's bright, it's sunny, it's really, really nice. It's really nice, and it should stay that. Oh wait, no, it's raining. Oh, that snuck up on us, didn't it? Yeah, that's why we wanted to do the weather to warn people about it. Okay, well, like I said, most people are not in Kakariko Village. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry. Yeah. No, that's fine. Just keep doing the weather. Check. Okay. All right. Now, the last thing is that I've noticed in recent episodes you have not been promoting the new book, and Mr. Lytle has given us some advertisement copy that he would like us to read. And why have you not been reading that? Well, I recorded it. And I aired it, but I messed up, and I'm embarrassed about it. I just didn't want to do it again. What did you do? I said I said that the vampire like ravished people instead of ravaged them, and that has a different meaning. Yeah, that's not good. That's not at all what the copy says. I know it's not good. That's why I didn't want to do it. That's actually pretty bad. This is a family show. Okay, I know. I misread the copy. I'm sorry. Well, I mean, you can do it now. Wait, what? I just read it now. Like you want me to do the commercial like live? Well, yeah. I mean, okay. Okay, this is The Hallowing of Ground by Paul Lytle. And it's like this vampire is like attacking this town, is ravaging the town. And there's some like vampire hunters that come along, and they want to kill him. Okay, what are they like? They're like heroes. They're big darn heroes. That's what they are. Did you read the book? No. I was waiting on the audiobook. Okay, well, I need you to read the book, and then you can come back next time and do a real advertisement for it, okay? Okay, all right. That's fair. Mr. Lytle, I'm sorry. That's fair. Y'all go read. What is it called? The Hallowing of Ground. The Hallowing of Ground by Paul Lytle. It is on Amazon in ebook format, Kindle format, exclusively. No, it's in paperback too. It's in paperback and Kindle. Both of them, but not audiobook yet. I checked. Is he going to do an audiobook? I think so, yeah. Oh, nice. Very cool. Well, I mean, still get the book. Still get, go get the book. It's good. It's very good. Are we going to go to a commercial now? Yeah, I mean, is that everything? Yeah, that's pretty much everything. Okay, well, I mean, thanks for coming by. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Kai. Yes, and I'm called Karok. Karok. Oh, okay. Well, Karok, it's good to meet you. Great. Thanks for coming. All right, we are going to jump to a quick break, and we are going to enjoy a little bit of the music from Bravely Default, and then we will chat a little bit about the game before we depart for the day. And welcome back. So, this is going to be by far the most recent game that we've mentioned on the show before. In my defense as a retro game podcaster, this game was released last decade, unless, of course, you are counting the decades as starting in 2021. If that's the case, then it was most definitely released this decade. This is actually from 2012. It is Bravely Default. It is a game from Square Enix. And that's kind of important because this is just thoroughly a Final Fantasy game. In fact, it was originally conceived as being part of the Final Fantasy series. And then it just kind of developed on its own. But there are a lot of things that you're going to find from Final Fantasy. And this is much more of a top-down, old-style Final Fantasy. It even has the 4 crystals that you found in Final Fantasies 1 through 5, 6 if you count crystals there, even though they weren't strictly, by the book, 4-element crystals. But it's really hitting on the things that made Final Fantasy. It does pick up the job system that several Final Fantasies have used to varying degrees of success, but the job system is always a lot of fun, and it is also a lot of fun in this case. And so this is a story of a young man named Tiz who it just barely survives his town just exploding out of nowhere. And then he meets some other people. There's Agnès, who is the Vestal of the Wind Crystal, and Ring a Bell, who is a guy who has amnesia, but has this journal that seems to be telling him the future. And finally, as we get going here, we meet Edea, who is seeming to be a soldier for the other side. Her companions are really, really out to get you. But she becomes disillusioned with one of the people that she's working with, and so decides to jump sides, which is especially weird because her father is kind of the boss of everything on the bad guy's side. And so this becomes our party, and along the way you get different jobs. You get the jobs by defeating the character who embodies that job. And so I mean, one of the absolutely charming things about this game is all the characters, and they have just some marvelous personalities, and not just in the main 4 characters, but in all the bad guys' forces. These people are very distinct and just have some characteristics and some personality behind them that's very, very interesting. And you start off right away with just, fighting some absolute jerks, but then, I mean, there's some characters that are just very honorable and straightforward and are really cool characters to see, to watch as they go about their day. The Brave and Default system in battle is really unique, and it's very versatile. So what this does is you can attack or act like normal, or you can default, which kind of reserves your turn for later use, or you can brave, which means that you're using an extra turn. And so you can kind of front load all your turns, but then essentially you're in the negative and you're not going to be able to attack for a while. Or you can reserve by doing default, and that does put you in a defensive stance, so you're not taking as much damage, and then you can kind of unload. And you can use these very strategically in battles. In some battles you figure out a pattern when's the best time to attack and when's the best time to pull back. The best one of these was the Swordmasters battle. And this above all else really was a battle of waiting for that perfect moment to just unload on him. And so, it felt like one of those great old, like Kurosawa, samurai battles where you're sizing each other up and you're waiting and you're holding your position and you're waiting, and then somebody will jump forward and it's just this just rush of action real quick, but then a withdrawal and feeling each other out. Now you've gotten a little bit of an idea about their defenses and their abilities, and it felt like that. And then there are other battles that are just kind of all out brawls, and different job sets are useful in different circumstances, and you can mix and match what you pull from different jobs. And all of this system is just very, very satisfying. And it turned out to be just like one of like a really, really memorable and cool plot. One that we're this is not a spoiler review, and so I won't give it away, but it's going to turn you in places that you're not expecting, because it's setting you up for the Final Fantasy conventions. But then there's a lot of times that it follows the convention. It's not something that's completely trying to subvert what you're expecting at every turn. It does it in very measured and appropriate ways. And you really get to really care about these characters. Like Ring-a-Bell was my least favorite of the four for a long, long time. And all of a sudden he starts growing in ways that I was not expecting, and in very satisfying ways. Everything, just pretty much every twist and turn is like that. It's in the right spot. It's in the right proportion. It's not trying to bludgeon you over the head. It's trying to tell you a really cool plot. In a very, very cool way. There are a couple of definite flaws with it, and not trying to give anything away here, but something happens in the latter half of the game that kind of sends you into a cycle of having to do some stuff. And for those of you who played it, you know what I'm talking about. And it was. I literally almost gave up on the game at this point. And I remember, like, I was facing this one boss, and I kept getting destroyed by him. I just kept getting destroyed, and I couldn't find an efficient place to level grind. And so I was sitting there, I was like, it's going to take me forever to level grind much higher. I'm not in the right position to face this guy, and he just keeps destroying me. And so I finally told my friend, I was like, look, I'm going to give this back. I've been enjoying it up until this point, but at this point I am dreading playing this game. And he was like, oh yeah, I understand. And I fired up YouTube and I watched like the 20-minute segment after this battle. And I was like, well, that story's pretty cool. Let me think about this. And I ended up going back into the battle with a different strategy. It was a little cheesing it, but I came up with a different strategy and won this next time. And actually, this was the last trouble I had in the entire game. I did find an efficient grind point right after that, and over level ground a little bit, but it was still a lot of fun. And so I was able to kind of turn off random encounters toward the end and just fly through it because I was way over leveled. And just went through that. I also, like, right afterwards found an easy setting. And I was like, are you kidding? Why didn't you why didn't you tell me if there was an easy setting? And my friend was like, oh, I didn't remember that was there. I was like, oh, great. Well, that's helpful. And I could have done that days and days and days ago. But I did just try to finish out the game. Just went ahead and set it on easy because I was trying to get the game back to my friend, and instead of just holding it forever, as I am apt to do, because these games are long. There are a couple of different endings. The proper ending is really, really good. Oh, the other thing that I just really had a problem with is there's a point in the game where the game, to get the right ending, the proper ending, you have to do something that doesn't feel right. I'm not talking like sacrificing a kid or anything. Not like that. It's just like this is not the way I would actually act in this circumstance, and it's not the way I don't think these characters would act. I think they would act in a way that was different, but that leads to the bad ending. And so that just felt a little forced. Likewise, there's a lot going on in the game that could be cleared up rather easily if people would just talk for about a minute longer rather than just saying, enough of talk, let us fight. And that too felt frustrating because you as the player, you're mashing the button as your character is saying, enough of talking, let's fight. But you're going, no, that's clearly not the best response in this thing. And that feels forced. And I'm comparing it to Final Fantasy IV, which, we've been doing this series on. It's one of my favorite games, but it's like in nearly every circumstance in Final Fantasy IV, Cecil does what the character would have wanted him to do in the first place. I think the exception to that is the sealed cave, because I don't know about you, but every time I get to the sealed cave part, I'm like, why are we opening the sealed cave? It's sealed. Just leave it that way instead of bringing the crystal out into the open so that it could be stolen. But that's really the only time that the game is like forcing a narrative point that doesn't feel natural. And I think that's one of the cool things about Final Fantasy IV, that all these games that with such a distinct plot are very railroady. Cause and that's one of the natures of JRPGs. But there's a way to railroad while at the same time, going down a path that the player is going to want to go anyway. And then there's a railroad. And a lot of this game was a railroad. Where, you are sitting there going, no, don't stab him. This can be fixed like now. Just don't, why are you stabbing him? Don't, stop it. And people acting coy with information for no reason at all. Just to be coy. And it feels weird. It just feels weird in those places. So these are the things that like the railroady thing of it, and the good ending part of it might knock just a little bit off my overall score of it. Like I've ever given a score in this podcast before. I would say that the thing that puts you in the cycle, and about halfway through the game, maybe a little over halfway through the game, that darn near ruins it. It honestly, it nearly ruins the game. And up until that point, the game just felt good. It felt natural. It felt like, you were, it was like, like the job system, the battles, the brave and default system, these were all working together really, really nicely. And, you're able to mix and match all these abilities, like tons of abilities and tons of passive and active abilities that you can put on and just kind of mix them so that, you can just experiment with really great stuff and see how much damage you can really output in this game. And it's a lot. And you can break the game with some of the combinations of it. And that felt fun and interesting and natural. And then it gets to the point that it just does it like, I mean, just like in a moment. And I remember writing my friend is like, oh, this is a really cool plot development right here. And then like the next day writing him going, I hate this game. And that feels weird to say because once I got past it, and I didn't want to play. Just being honest about it, I did not want to play this game, and so I would like try the battle a couple of times, and then I'd put it aside for like a week, and I was just frustrated with it. But getting past it, I flew through the rest of the game. I was like blowing through levels for the rest of the game, and it felt good again. And so it feels weird, saying that, there was a point, in the game that I was ready to quit. I hated it. I was sick of it, and it was making me frustrated, and I didn't want to play anymore. But that part is there. And so, kind of at the end of the day, in recommending the game, if, and guys, if the Final Fantasy thing is up your alley, then this game is up your alley. If the old school Final Fantasy stuff is something you dig, this is that. It's, and it, there's so many points to it that are just like deliberate allusions to Final Fantasy. Some of the jobs, the spells, the items, they're all going to feel so natural to you because they're all Final Fantasy stuff. And, so you're going to, you're going to fall right naturally into that stuff. But it's like, it's further developed from the stuff we like from like Final Fantasy 3, Final Fantasy 5, tactics probably especially is my favorite use of the job system. These are like further developments and further experimentations with this job system that I absolutely loved. And so it's kind of why I don't feel bad about recommending a not at all retro game on a retro game podcast, even though it is 8 years old at least. Is that, this feels like Final Fantasy 1 through 6. It just feels like, it's more advanced. It's, it does some stuff that we could have never done back then. Like they use the technology of the 3DS. I forgot to mention this on 3DS. They use the technology of the 3DS in very, very interesting ways. Which of course, couldn't do on Super Nintendo or anything like that. But this feels like it's part of that. And so, at the end of the day, this is something that, I just had a ton of fun with, and I'm be plugging in the sequel, Bravely Second, here shortly. For those who are keeping up with video game news, the third part has been announced, and it is, of course, named Bravely Default 2, because this is how we number games. And so be on the lookout to see, Bravely Default, its sequel, Bravely Second, and the third part, Bravely Default 2. Oh, so much fun. So, that is going to be it for today. Just really quickly, I kind of ran out of time before talking about much of what we're going to be doing in the future, but one thing that we really, that needs to happen this year is, we need to get to the point in the show where we are not losing money on the show. And so if you do find value in the show and you are able, please do consider supporting us on Patreon, patreon.com/technofunkboy. That goes a long way. This has really been a labor of love, for us, these last 2 years. But at the same time, this labor of love is all the much more lovely, if you're not at the same time losing money. And so, please do consider that. If you are not able to, we totally understand. We're not putting the podcast behind a paywall or anything like that. We want you to enjoy it, but please do us a favor. Rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast catcher. share us on social media with some friends. It's very likely that you have some friends that like retro gaming, and so please, spread the word on that and ask them to check us out. We will be back with Final Fantasy IV one more time next week, and until then, appreciate it. We'll talk to you later.
The Retro Zoo Super Show is brought to you by the Techno Funk Boy. Follow us on Twitter at Techno Funk Boy, on Facebook at the Techno Funk Boy, and sign up for our email list at technofunkboy.com. Also look for us on Spotify, iTunes, and Amazon for music. If you are so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast catcher. If you are not so inclined, you are obviously some sort of villain trying to conquer the world. Unowned music and gameplay clips are used for educational and critical purposes. Thank you for listening. Keep gaming. And once you have responsibilities that need to be done at this time, then you can game later.